All right, good people. We are back on Play It Forward. We are here with Lorena Lourenco. She is a writer, director, filmmaker. We're going to be talking about Stitch today, short film she directed. Lorena, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Uh, Pleasure indeed and an honor. I would like a little summary, if you don't mind, of the film Stitch to set it up for our audiences. And also introduce yourself, and your background in any way that you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a Brazilian filmmaker.
What kind of
I'm
filmmaker?
Brazilian. I'm from
Brazilian. I thought
Rio de
that's what you
Janeiro,
said.
Brazil,
Okay.
which is paradise, and I realized when I not left it.
Yeah.
And I'm an immigrant, which has been a fun journey to have in the US, whilst also, trying to build a career as a filmmaker. And I love telling stories that are darkly comedic and stories about people that are often overlooked, people that are disenfranchised in one way or another, and kind of finding the joy and the comedy and all of that. And yeah.
Cool.
And Stitched, particularly, is
Yes.
exactly that kind of story, which I love. Written by Pratima Mani, who's an incredible writer. Uh, and it's about this woman of the South Asian diaspora. She's kind of, immigrated a lot throughout her life, and now she's in the US and trying to find a romantic partner. However, that proves itself to be hard because nobody can fully understand her cultural identity. And so she decides to Frankenstein the perfect partner, which turns out quite successful because she has made him to order. And unfortunately, it kind of turns awry when he realizes that she won't Frankenstein herself for him. And so, kind of it's a very darkly comedic short, which is very exciting because we get to play with gore and blood while also making very fun jokes. But it also has a sweet message at the end, which is, love isn't really about finding the perfect partner, but it's really about finding ways to meet someone else in the middle.
Yeah. Thank you for that setup. That was a great synopsis of it. I think it's so nice having that outside perspective and coming into a culture that you can embrace, and at the same time you have a way of looking at things from another cultural perspective that really opens up, all our cultural perspectives, whether it's one or the other. You kind of can go beyond to a meta level, of a more human level. So it's really, fortunate that you've got that experience and background. Yeah, stitched, right? So whether it's a South Asian diaspora or you know, any kind of, I think there's a lot of immigrant um sentiment here in terms of, the child of an immigrant is pressured to succeed in a culture that's, foreign to the parent and it's native to the child. And so there's that kind of tension between the two. Um, and there's a pressure to please your parents, and then there's a pressure to turn away and do something for yourself. And so then there's that struggle of coming of age, and you want to partner up and get the white picket, with the happy ending thing. And then you find the reality of what that really means, and it's working on yourself. There's a lot of inner work that we have to do. And there's one thing we think we have efficacy by controlling our environment, but the most thing that we have efficacy over is controlling ourselves and our own kind of thought process, our actions, our beliefs. So how do we do that? Here's this picture of this woman who goes out there. She's highly capable. She goes, she digs up bodies. She's Frankenstein putting them together. She's got her own laboratory. I mean, this girl is on point, and yet it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out because the same thing is expected of her, right? That emotional, unconditional love is expected from her as well, and she's got to live up to that expectation. So, all right. The first question, play it forward. Where did the, when you said yes to the script, what were you saying yes to? What was that emotional inspiration, and where did it come from in your own experience? What was like the hook that you said, yeah, I get this. I know this, I can come at it with this.
Yeah, Fatima's probably the first writer that I've directed for that I didn't know ahead of time. It was a blind meet of sorts, and we just happened to like each other's work. And so, what really drew me to the project when I read the script was the fact that it was the story about an immigrant trying to understand who they are and how they fit into society in a different space, and that spoke very, very deeply to me and my experiences immigrating to the US. Um, and identities are always more complex than the boxes that people try to put them in. And I think the way that she wrote this short speaks a lot to that. I'm Brazilian, so I'm Latina, but I'm not Hispanic. And I think I speak Portuguese, native Portuguese, but not native Spanish. And I'm put in a box that people are usually very confused with because of that. And so in a similar way, I think, Pratima having grown throughout like so many different countries and then now settling in the US and trying to explain to people how so much of her identity is tied to all the different places that she's been through, it's people don't know what box to put her in, right? And that was what I really deeply related with. And then also just the tone of the comedy, right? That's what I loved. It's a very dark comedy. We're making jokes about, him being a hot Chucky, and it's that really dark comedy that I really adore and appreciate. And so, I think one of the reasons I said yes is because like not only is it well written, is it about a topic that I deeply relate to and I feel like is within my own life, but it's also incredibly funny in a way that relates to my humor, right? And so we exchanged a lot of like references when we first started talking, and it was a lot of shows that we both really enjoyed that were very, very dark comedies. And so I think that's what spurred so much of the inspiration. It was like that personal connection, and also the fact that like we just have these exact same taste in humor, which is a blessing to find.
Which is what?
A blessing to find.
Yeah, cool. So to educate myself and our audiences, it sounds like Latina, you're from Latin America. However, you're not Hispanic, meaning you don't speak Spanish.
Hmm.
That's how you break it down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good to know. All right. So, well, now we've touched a little bit about the message and the meaning of the film, but I think as a filmmaker, it's always interesting. Like you're making the work, and the process of whether you're director or writer, you have the vision, you have like the thematic content that you're focused around articulating and getting a narrative arc around. And then there is you as a viewer who is like, okay, the project's done. I'm watching it 6 months, a month, whatever, years later. What, and then it's moving me in a way ideally. So, on any of those fronts, what are you inspired to share in terms of the meaning, the message for you?
That's fun. I think as a filmmaker, the message for me, just creating it was that the world is my oyster, I think is what I realized with this film, which is very exciting. I come from a producing background. I've produced a lot, and so I understand how to build a film in any scale, and where I can move money in a way that doesn't lose me production value. Um, and so that's what's exciting to me. It's the fact that, I think this film was one of the first one of my most ambitious film, and in a way that like, I knew how to go about it in the best way so that, we could go for that very stylized, very colorful, full of blood, full of gore, full of prosthetics, film and look and aesthetic, whilst also, being able to make our budget and making something that was sensible, and also pulling great performances from people. And so to me, it was a very exciting moment for me to realize like, oh, I have all these skills. Like I have this down. And also for me to realize that like, yeah, like I can push boundaries further. Like this was my biggest project yet. And I was like, and this is a success. Like I can push the boundary even further. And that's really exciting. So it was a great moment of kind of like self-accomplishment and realization of finishing this film, being like, I got this. Let's now do this at a feature scale. We got this down. And then from an audience perspective, it's so funny because I feel like anytime you watch it with a different audience, it's a different experience. because there is a way that you can take yourself out when you haven't seen it in a while, but like it's always your film. Like you're never gonna have like that fresh brain when watching it. So we had the incredible benefit of premiering it at Holly Shorts, which means we premiered like to a packed theater of the Alliance of Women Directors screening, which is incredible because it was mainly women in that audience. And so I think it spoke very deeply to the dating experience of a lot of women. Uh, and and that was an incredible screening to be at and to experience because they just laughed throughout the entire thing. I was mind blown how much laughter that was. And I was like, oh, things that I didn't even think were like laugh out loud were laugh out louds. Um, and that kind of like broadened my view of like, oh, what is actually bringing out laughs or not? And then at every different screening, I think I realized like there's different people that laugh more at different places, which is very exciting to me. And it kind of always helps me understand different audiences in different places. And I think for me watching it back, there's again, I think that sense of like self-realization and also that sense of, you know, we did an incredible job and I'm so glad we all got to come together and collaborate on this. Me, Pratima, our incredible producer Naomi, and so many talented people that worked on this. Um, and uh and yeah, just like genuine pride for all of us and just joy that we got to make this and we get to share this and yeah.
There's no doubt. I mean, it's it's quite a big production. There's a whole slew of technical things that could be very difficult to pull off. And you guys put in a great deal of time and effort and really polished it to make it a very professional work, and that shows. So you guys definitely did a great job. In terms of the meaning, though, the message, what do you think that is for you when you look at this film?
The message of the story, I think I think it was a little bit of what I said in the beginning of, you know, relationships are about finding a way to meet other people in the middle, right? And that is something that I've always believed in. But I think this film kind of showcases in a way that I think is very special, that I think is uh it kind of showcases in a way that's very self-critical to the protagonist. So it kind of incites a lot of self-analysis to the audience, which I really enjoy. Um, and that's one of the elements that I really love about this film is it's not afraid to be very self-critical about its own protagonist. And therefore, I think it incites a lot of self-analysis. And I think it does that to me when watching and when creating it as well. It reminds me to like
Yeah.
it kind of grounds me either when watching or when making it because of that element of it.
Well, so you said meeting in the middle and self-analysis, and to me, what I'm hearing is really, you know, whatever we ask of others, we've got to be able to do
Hmm.
ourselves, and we have to have the self-reflection to be honest with what we're doing.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So I guess what's the moment of awareness that the protagonist comes to when she realizes that maybe something that she's expecting is unreasonable?
It takes her a really long time, I feel like, to realize that. And that's part of the beauty of this is that the audience catches on so much faster than she does. And so you're kind of just enjoying the ride a little bit towards like the end of the movie where she's kind of like coming to that realization herself. Because when Sai, who's played by Vic, who's an incredible actor, asks Leela, you know, like, you know, let's change a little bit of your brain. And she says no, from just like a normal, like in this reality person, you're like, yeah, I don't want to change my brain. That sounds psychotic, right? Operating in your own brain. But she then goes to search for Sai with her sister, who, by the way, has incredible chemistry. Pratima is also our lead. And Farida plays the sister. They had such great present chemistry. They're so funny. But the scene where, you know, Farida's sister kind of tells her, hey, you you're like going about this the wrong way. It's not about finding the perfect match. Um it's about meeting someone halfway. What I love about that is the fact that she kind of tells her the message she needs to learn from this. And Leela's just not ready to listen to it. And so what's kind of beautiful is that it's this very beautiful, like emotional moment, but it's undercut by comedy in a way that makes it sway away from the melodrama in a way that makes it a very grounded scene that I love. And I think the comedy and the drama of that really balance each other really well. And then you kind of learn that like people need to come to this realization themselves, right? So she fully ignores her sister when her sister is giving her good advice. But then she kind of comes to that realization in the next scene when she runs into Kelly. And this person that she's emulated all of this like desire to find the perfect partner out of, she sees in real life, and this person's a full mess. And like everything that she like promotes about her life on social media is a lie. And then it makes Leela question, herself and her choices and how she's viewing love and relationships and self. And I think that's a really beautiful moment. And that's when we end it, when kind of like that turns in her brain and she goes back home and turns the experiment off.
So what do you think can help us, moving beyond the script and like into life? What do you think can help us get to that point where we can acknowledge our own current abilities and then be able to grow? How do we do that?
Oh, that's such a big philosophical question. I love it. Like
Mhm.
how can we kind of
Yeah, how do you do
grow
that? How
and
do you do that in your
realize?
life when you're not ready to get a message, you can't hear the message, but you need to.
Honestly, I think it's about finding time and space to sit with things, right? And so when you hear something that you feel maybe resonates with you, but you're not ready to listen to it, like if you're attuned enough, you can tell, right? You hear something, it hits you, but it bothers you, right? The thing to me is about, you can't ignore it, you can't set it to the side. You kind of have to sit with it, right? And you kind of have to think on it and kind of go back to that feeling and that thought that is giving you that sense of unease, and figure out where the unease comes from and where the relating to this thought comes from. And I think, it just requires a lot of time and space for self-reflection, I think. And that's how you get to a point of I think being ready to look at things like that.
That's great. Thank you. How have you been personally changed since making this movie?
Oh God, in so many ways, because it's also like taken us a while. Like all of the tile pieces were animation; they're fully CG.
Oh, they're
So
beautiful too.
thank you. Shout out
Wow.
to Carlos who did those. He's such an incredible artist. Um, but because there's so much to that, and also like we went back and forth in that initial scene, between animation and music and the edit process, so that like that timing was kind of on point. Um, there's so much of that that like took forever. And so I feel like I've been changed by this process through one, just how naturally long it takes when it's also now your day job and you have to do other things in life. And because also this was a very complicated post process. So naturally I think you just change and grow as a person. But I also think that this film has kind of helped me grow as a no, thank you. As a director and as a um and I think what I've grown with the most in this film is like my ability to learn to work with people, whether they may be actors or whether they may be crew. I think one of the biggest skills that you can have as a director is knowing how to relate to people and communicate to people well. And this film just had so many actors and we had so many moving pieces, and it can get stressful. And I think keeping your cool and also, knowing what the story is that you want to tell, and knowing who you are and how you want to get that across and how you want to do this is so important. And this film, I think, taught me in several ways. Like, you know, what it is the story you want to tell. You know how you want to do it because you know who you are. It's just about kind of sticking to those guts and making sure that, you don't cross any boundaries for yourself that you don't feel comfortable with. And you don't cross other people's boundaries, because I think if you're attuned enough, you can always tell where other people's boundaries are. Um, and it's about giving that space and time for people to have that conversation with you, to feel comfortable, performing something vulnerable, or kind of, diving a little deeper into the work than they usually would, or trying a different shot that they're very excited about as, a DP or whatever. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you for being on the show. We are out on Pay It Forward. Take it easy. Till next time, Lorna. It was a pleasure
Thank you.
meeting
Till
you.
next time.
Bye.